Hi, this is Stephanie. Let me tell you a story. This is part two of chapter two of my novel, The Infinite Library. The chapter is called Debrief. Someone a little high fan like you is afraid of? I never would have guessed. An oily voice ahead of them said. Nureddin raised his eyes to glare at the alien behind the half door in front of them. The line had moved forward again while Nureddin and Niles were talking, and they were now at the front of the line. Before Nureddin could begin letting loose a torrent of potentially offensive language, Niles stepped forward and caught the alien's attention. My sincere apologies for not responding more quickly, dear colleague, he said after giving a short bow. My teammate and I are here to give an initial report of an anomaly found in a young adult urban fantasy universe, and to find the proper forms to process the damage. Niles ended the explanation with one of his most charming smiles, which worked on nearly everyone, regardless of gender or species. Niles was naturally talented at working with people of any shape or size, and so it made him a natural to be part of the away teams that would enter individual universes and find anomalies. The alien working the report desk, while usually unaffected by human displays of friendliness, found themselves softening in the light of Niles' smile. Fine, that's fine. What is your team? What is the unique book identification designation? And please briefly describe the anomaly. The alien took one of their left hands and pulled a blank notepad close, clicking a ballpoint pen with one of their right hands and preparing to take notes, while the top pair of hands gestured in the manner of their culture. Niles could never remember the name of this species or exactly which universe they came from, but this particular alien had been working in the reporting desk off and on for longer than Niles had been on the team. Nureddin stepped up on the provided courtesy steps so he could face the alien on a more even level, and began rattling off the team's ID and the UB ID of the book with the anomaly. He paused after that to allow Niles to join in with regards to the anomaly itself, as Nureddin had shamefully not seen anything clearly in that regard. It was the trees, that was all. The trees always remembered and would never forget, and Nureddin would never forget either. He wouldn't forget, and he wouldn't forgive either the trees or himself for the amount of frustration and extra hand-holding he caused because of the trees. Niles took over for his teammate, one hand on Nureddin's shoulder in a more reassuring way this time. He briefly outlined what they had seen while the alien continued to take notes, stopping to ask clarifying questions as needed. Soon the two men had their own stack of forms to carry over to the desks, with strict instructions about which forms needed to be filled out first and in triplicate. These directions went straight out of Nureddin's head as soon as he heard them, and he marched over to Veronica's desk, focused only on maintaining the stack of forms without dropping any of them, or tripping over something or someone along the way. Niles, on the other hand, hung back for a moment after receiving his pile of forms. Many thanks for your help, friend, he said to the alien, taking a close look at the first few forms in his own much taller stack. I appreciate that your job may not be the most glamorous, but it is very important, and so I wish to let you know that your work is seen and appreciated. With a solicitous nod that almost turned into a shallow bow, Niles turned and followed Nureddin across the floor. The alien watched him leaving, mouths hanging open in shock. Humans! Who could understand them? Soon all five team members had converged around Veronica's desk, sitting at the large round table that constituted their team workspace. Veronica was the only member of the team to have a permanent workspace in the library, as her books had been out of print for decades and her universe was stable without her in it. With those two factors combined, Veronica had the most freedom to come and go as she pleased from her universe, and found herself spending the most time in the library. It was a natural fit to keep her there for work purposes. The other team members floated around to other desks when they needed a dedicated workspace for more than an hour or two, but generally, the round table and small cubicle like area built up around it were more than enough to meet their needs. Sophia and Beale were already at the big table when Niles and Nureddin returned. Sophia had a steaming mug in her hand, while Beale was eating the last bite of something from a store in Prime. Niles was instantly curious and asked immediately, Did you get some kind of pastry while you were in Prime? How is the food there? Niles, buddy, you have no idea, Beale said around a mouthful of cookie. The food has all this complexity to it, and it's not just one or two flavors and that's it. It isn't just some thin veil of a thing that's described in a few words and then never thought of again. The people in Prime have their problems, sure, but they know how to make one hell of a sugar cookie. He swallowed the last bite, then rubbed a napkin all around his face, finally clearing the frosting from his face. Sophia sighed in relief. Noureddin sniffed disdainfully. I'll take my loaf of lemnis bread over your cookie any time. At least I know what my lemnis is made of. I'm not about to eat something that could be more chaff than food when I don't know how it was made, much less the possibility of poison. Noureddin had a lot of enemies in his universe, and so he was accustomed to being a bit more paranoid than most people believed was truly healthy. Sophia rolled her eyes, but refrained from making any comment about Noureddin's choice of food for once. I see you've gotten the forms. Is it just me, or has the number of forms increased with each successive job we've done? Not just you, Veronica said as she spun in her office chair, accepting both stacks of paperwork from Niles and Noureddin. I've noticed that our paperwork load has increased 3 to 5% with each successful mission and 10 to 12% with each failed mission. There are more events and details the head librarians want to track, and so they need more information from the agent teams in order to track those details long term. Filling the forms out properly is the best way we have to provide solid, accurate information to the head librarians so they can maintain the overall stability of the library and all the universes therein. She frowned when she saw all the faces of her teammates were making. What? I swear it's like she swallows the agent training guide just so she can bring it up in moments like this, Noureddin said, not unkindly. The training guide had been a miserable slog for him, and if it hadn't been for Veronica, he doubted he would have passed the necessary tests to become an agent. Still, there was understanding the guide, and there was reciting it. I do have to admit, I'm getting visions of you using the training guide as your bedtime reading, hun, Sophia added with a smirk. I know this team is your main focus anymore, but, well, dang. Veronica's face turned bright red as she turned back to her desk. I just think the paperwork is really important, and I know you guys don't think it is all the time, and I want to make sure that you understand why the heads need it. That's all. Her voice came out a little small, like she was trying to hold an emotion back, and Beale swallowed audibly and shifted his chair back so he was next to her at her desk. Hey, no problem. We were just joking a little, but we understand. The paperwork is important, even if it is a huge pain in the neck. We're just so lucky to have a great gal like you who can help us through all of it so quickly and painlessly that we sometimes forget how bad it was before. He chucked her under the chin, surprising a smile out of her. So don't worry about it, eh? We'll make sure to do things properly, if not for the heads, then for you. Sophia did her best to suppress an eye roll, but she didn't think she was terribly successful. She knew that Beale was used to using the kind of language that Veronica's universe considered normal, calling her gal and doll and such. And Sophia knew that Veronica didn't mind it when it was meant earnestly. There was just something so galling about watching a strong, confident woman deal with the same kind of condescending crap after all the time that had passed between Veronica's universe and Sophia's. It somehow seemed worse to have it coming from Beale, who was supposed to be another modern character and thus beyond such trite nonsense. So long as he didn't try any of that on her, Sophia knew she didn't really have a leg to stand on. It still wrinkled. Niles broke up the tension with a small cough, bringing everyone's attention back to the table and the stack of forms at hand. Much as I appreciate how Milady is so thorough in explaining the whys and wherefores of the paperwork at hand, the truth of the matter is that we still need to fill it out. The sooner we start, the sooner we can call the job finished and put it behind us, tucked safely away. So, where would you like to start? Everyone turned to Veronica expectantly, as she had always been the lead when it came to the end of action report. She smiled, picking up the top form and pulling a freshly sharpened pencil out of the drawer of her desk. Let's start at the beginning, of course. And that is the end of chapter 2. You can continue reading along on Royal Road, which is linked to from my blog, insertscenehere.blogspot.com. Thanks as always, hasta pronto.